Welcome to Tea, Toast, and Theology, All Things Nourishing, a podcast by The Table. Find us on the web at the-table.church.
You have this reading from Jeremiah, which is that of uh, joy, praising, going and saying, shout it out and say that things are going to be awesome, right? Uh, I'm going to bring them from the land of the north together, and it's all a story of restoration. It's going to happen. And then we have this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful psalm of restoration, right? And it has come, the background of this is that people were in exile in Babylon, and now they are coming back. And as they are coming back, they are like, wow, this is great. It would ever be possible for us to go back in there. And last night, Scott pointed out that the land was barren, right? There was no harvest there. And they had to sow new seeds there and then wait for the harvest, which took a few months, right? So they came to a place which was barren. And they still somehow had the hope that there will be life here, right? So they are sowing with tears, with the hope that they will reap with joy and laughter, right? That is the context of this psalm, that they are coming back into this land and it doesn't feel real. Thing does not feel real because they have been under so much oppression, right? I want to come back to this. But let's go and look at what's happening in the letter to the Hebrews. They are really concerned about this priest thing, right? And I don't know how many of you know this, but priests like Dennis and I actually renew our year, right? And for the last few years, I was double dipping. Okay, I would go to the uh, cathedral in Bridgeport as well, and I would renew my vows there as well, right? Now here's my logic to that. My logic to that is that when you are ordained a priest, you're actually not ordained for a church. This is very interesting. Read the ordination service, Roman Catholic or Episcopal or Lutheran or whatever. You're not ordained for a church or a denomination. The language there is you are being ordained a priest in the church of God. Church of God. Right? So people like me and Dennis, that's why we continue to do what we do. Right? Because the ordination doesn't come from the specific denomination. The ordination when the body of together to set you apart for something, right? Yeah, the discipline of that particular company, right? And these people are facing that issue as well because there are priests, they're not Roman Catholic, they're not Episcopalians. Guess what? They are Jewish. These are Jewish priests that they are talking about. You see what I'm saying? And they are concerned about that whole thing that you have expressed your concern about today. That kind of coming together to be the church sometimes get so mired with our own humanly stuff that we lose the idea why we are there and why we were set apart, which was to serve God, not a human institution, but to serve God. That's why we were set apart. But with all the other things that we put in place, disciplines, which are important, because you do not want people to have no oversight at all either, right? You do want certain boundaries set for people. But unfortunately, sometimes, I would say, sometimes being 99.9% of the time, right? That whole structure becomes the main thing, and we lose the whole idea of why we were actually in it in the right? And priesthood then becomes a problem. And they're struggling with that idea. Because guess what? Here's a community that is being formed new with Chris and I. This is true. Coming, there are people like us who are in this, and they're kind of wondering, what do we do with it? We want that kind of leadership, but we don't want, just like you all said, we don't want ritual. And guess what? We do ritual, right? We had a very interesting conversation last night because, we have an afterglow. So the service ends there at around, and we pack up around 8:30. We are home, or we strive to be home by from 8:40 or 8:50. There's an afterglow party at my house, which last night ended till 11:30. And so that afterglow party, we have all kinds of discussions, right? And the discussion last night was that, are people really into worship? Because, the idea was, well, worship is like people who stand up and, and someone there said, well, what if somebody wants to sit and worship? Hmm. But that's how we worship, right? You see, all of a sudden, the form of how we do it becomes more important than what we are actually doing, right? And it is true of every nation, in fact, of every religion, that the form becomes more important than the content. We become very concerned about, did we read the gospel after the New Testament? Who read it? Did they stand in the middle? Did they raise it right? 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 All that form. How many times did we did it? What is the order of liturgy? All those things become so important. And when those things are important, I'm always concerned that the content is not important there. Because if we are so concerned about the form, that means the content is what we are missing on. Because if we were really focused on the content, the form would not matter. Right? Same concern about, are people doing this? Then that's a form. Right? And the beautiful thing that I think we all agreed upon, and the way we expressed it, was we don't want ritual. Not that we don't want the grace of this, but we want the content to be highlighted and not the form, right? Which is what then makes, I have said it numerous times, Saturday coming together and having a meal together is as much a sacrament as is this. because the content is actually the same. Form is different, but the content is same. Connecting with God, whether you do it in silence, whether you do it kneeling, whether you do it standing, whether you do it dancing, with God, that's the content. Great, right? So in Hebrews, they are beginning question, just like us. What is important? Is the form important or is the content important? And they are saying the content is what we get from Jesus. Right? The ideal that we have to have. Connecting with Jesus. And what Jen said, this story is so unique that despite what everyone else was saying, this person, as Peggy said, and as Chris said, this person, I don't care about my form. I don't care about the cloak I'm wearing. I can let go of that form, right? In a second, because my concern is to have a connection with Jesus. And sometimes some commentators would say that this guy got it better than the actual disciples who were telling him to keep quiet. Because he understood, right? Now, there's so form and content is my one point. The other thing that is really interesting is a journey. In Jeremiah, he's talking about bringing people in from north, south, east, west, bringing everybody in. Guess what? You don't just go from here to here without a journey. Right? You don't go from point A to point B without a journey. You actually have a journey. You have to travel that distance to get there. Right? In the psalm, the psalmist, this is very interesting. This psalm is part of the psalm of songs of ascent. And in the Jewish culture, they are still said and sung on high and holy days, right? Especially when you're moving towards Jerusalem to go and celebrate. So as you are going towards the high holy place to celebrate, you sing this psalm. It reminds them that God is with them once, and that's what they go and celebrate, right? And so there is that journey there as well. And as I said, the letter of the Hebrews is in the middle of a journey, just right in the middle of a journey. And the gospel today is also about a journey that Jesus is now making, leaving Jericho and going towards Jerusalem. And in that journey is where a blind man and says, hey, I want to be on this journey with you. Restore me. Restore me. So my second point today is that it's a journey. And thanks be to God that we are all a part of a journey, kind of what you were saying, Chris. We are part of a journey, right? And we know that the morning is going to be that of joy. Well, in our case, thankfully, even the journey is pretty far. Right? Right? That's how we feel it. That we are on that way, on that journey. And my last point for today is that oftentimes the word restoration to think of as a word that describes what? Going back to something. Restore. Right? When we think of the word restore, we think of taking something and bringing it back to what it used to be. Right? And in all these examples that we saw, whether from Jeremiah, Psalm, Hebrews, the Gospel, the idea of restoration is not that of going back. The idea is moving forward, right? The idea is hope in the coming day. The idea is that God will do all sorts of wonderful things as God is doing now. And you have to sow seed, right? And then wait. And the plant that's going to appear is not going to be what appeared 10 years ago. It's going to be a different plant, right? Because it's like coming out in a different environment. The sunlight is different, the water is, the climate is different. Everything is different for that plant. And my friends, my greatest joy in what we are doing is exactly that. Okay? My greatest joy is exactly that. That our eyes are not fixed on the past. I love that verse in Luke, where he says, you know, if you have your hand on the plow, right behind the bull, right? The bull is pulling the plow and you're tilling the land. And if you turn backwards to see how you did, you're actually not fit for Christian ministry. It's a very interesting verse, right? You're not fit for Christian ministry if you keep looking back. Because the idea is not in the past, my friends. The idea is in the present and the future. We are being restored. Here's what I think the gospel may be saying to you today, Rita. Your friend is being restored in a new way. I know death is a time when we stop and think about the past, right? But think about the future. Think about his work. You have shared this ministry with me before, right? His ministry with me before. Um, and what I found so wonderful about that was that it was not about words. It was not about words. His life was not about standing on the street and saying, this is what I believe in. His life was about actions, right? If he believed that life is important, then he's not just going to shout from the rooftop. He's actually going to do something about it, right? And he did. And he gave his whole life doing it, right? And what I would say to that is what Christian life is all about. And I would say he lived a really good Christian life because he's not being recognized by the church. That's a really good sign. That is the other part of Christian journey, right? Because if he didn't know that, he wouldn't have done all the work that he did, right? So in Christian journey, when we are on that journey, we don't do it because others are happy with what we are doing and are recognizing us, right? We do it because it is what, and that calling is from God. And to hear that calling and to do this, I mean, look at you all. You heard a call and you're doing it, right? Didn't do it so that someone else would be happy with what we are doing, right? Didn't do it so that people will say, wow, right? Who knows what people are, right? And who cares, right? In Christian life, when we are walking with Jesus, right, it is in faith that we walk with Jesus. Our primary concern is our faith, and He demonstrated in His life that He faith. Now, if those around you are able to see it, that's wonderful. If not, that's not why we did it, right? And that is why what the other thing we talked about last night was that it is so beautiful. I posted a few videos from last night. If you listen to them, it's beautiful, beautiful, right? Now, uh, conventional wisdom says, oh, there should be like a huge crowd standing there going, wow, this is right. But you know, our problem, we're not doing it so that we can get the lords of the people. We're doing it, and this is what I pointed out to them, that each of the musicians, all of them, this morning, last night, and those who were not there last night, when they come and join, you know, Mark is not doing it because he's going to be like, oh, he's such a great musician, or he comes and he does. He's not doing. You know, on last Saturday, Al was there, Craig, or, in the morning, Charlie and Amanda. They are not doing it because they want to be recognized as a great musician. Right? Confessions at 11:30. Right? And that is what I believe is being authentically in faith with Jesus Christ. In praises of people, Lord and Savior. Right? Let's be on that journey together, regardless of who acknowledges us and who does not acknowledge us. Let's let's have the of that blind man, forgetting what other people are saying and saying, no, I want to be with Jesus. Can we say an amen to that?
Thank you for tuning in. Please like, comment, and subscribe.